story in both the Asha workshop. So I just going to try it with you guys. So this is a Jewish parable that I heard somewhere, and I found it very strong. And let me tell you, it has no connection with any other organization dead or alive. If there are parallels, don't think it is about some organization. So there's this Jewish monastery that has been facing a lot of attritions, and they were really short on volunteers. Oh, sorry, monks. So they were losing their charm in the society. Very few people would show up in their events. Whatever. And they were very worried how to continue this great monastery that used to be the shining star in the local area. They hear that an abbot, who was a very learned guy, was visiting the town next to them. So they sent their rabbi to the other town to ask him how they can save their monastery that used to be such a great place before. So the rabbi travels, meets the abbot, and asks the abbot, "Hey, what can I do so that I can get more volunteers, monks, or how to make my monastery again much liked in my society?" And the abbot thinks for 2 minutes and then say, "You know what? I don't have a solution for you. Unfortunately, I don't think your monastery is going to survive based on what you told me about it." And they both cry and then they go to sleep because it was very late. In the morning, the abbot wakes up and tells the rabbi, "You know what? I had a dream that your monastery is again going to shine one day." And the rabbi says, "No, tell me, how did we do it? In your dream, how did we do it?" I said, "I don't remember how you did it." The rabbi is so discouraged, like, he believes the abbot has some special power, so he's able to dream what is reality, but he doesn't know how. And then just as the rabbi is leaving to go back to his monastery, the abbot stops him and says, "You know what, I remember one thing." And he says, "What?" He says, "One of you is the Messiah. One of you is going to take the monastery back to its original popularity." And he says, "Who?" "I don't know. You have to figure it out." So the rabbi comes back to his monastery. Luckily, they don't have a democratic setup like Asha. The people really just believes whatever most of the power says. So he says, "This is what the abbot said, that one of us is Messiah, but he didn't tell me who." So instead of questioning, people just start internalizing this thing. And they started working like, maybe I am the Messiah. And then they started acting like a Messiah. Or some days they would think, "Oh, maybe Srini is the Messiah." And started respecting him as a Messiah because, yeah. So it went on, and that's how the monastery became the cool monastery it used to be before. So I just want you to pay attention to that. Maybe one of us.
Thank you, Pradeep. We are starting off the sessions for the afternoon, which is starting with the debrief of the brainstorming sessions which happened yesterday. So it's a group of 7 people who did the sessions. We are running out of time, so roughly about 6 minutes is what each individual speaker would have. We'll start with Shankar Sadasivam, who did the topic cross-chapter engagement for organizational efficiency. Welcome.
I hope I was not quite prepared. The slides are in there. Okay. Those of you who are in my session, please remind me if I forget to say something. So we first started by asking where are the areas that we need collaboration, and a lot of questions came up broadly. The topmost was projects. The second was the fundraising and publicity related stuff. I'll do the easy one first. The fundraising and publicity, where is Akshay? Everything points to data analytics and wiki. We need to come up with consolidated donor DB and a link tracking, document sharing mechanism on the wiki that is easily locatable. And yeah, so that is one of the primary things that volunteers said. They just don't know where things are on the wiki. The search box was told, but we can probably do a better job of keeping things a little bit more organized. That's one of the things that came up from my debrief session. We wanted to talk about Asha-26 accounts for donor email management so that we can leverage the power of one chapter to another. So this is all a bunch of ideas on the fundraising, publicity, ticketing side. So I can, it's completely on the web team's plate, which I'm sure it's kind of empty looking right now, so we can add a few more. The project partners. So we had the fortune of actually having a project partner in our discussion. So one of the pain points apparently is it's kind of painful for a project to approach multiple chapters. There's a general expectation that if we do the legwork in the beginning, it should be easier to approach other chapters and get their projects through the funding pipeline. So that's feedback to the project team. We have to think of a way to enable that. It's an open action item. We need to brainstorm. I don't know one. One of the challenges, of course, that there's not really a way to today take something through a project funding pipeline unless there's a steward locally championing it. And so these are one of the issues that came up. And the biggest thing, which probably touches upon the non-profit forum that we just had, we need ways to connect project partners A and B and do it in an organic fashion. It looks like there are a lot of benefits of doing that. The only tool that we were able to think about that facilitates this today is our project pages and the wiki pages. And one of the challenges is the information is distributed across the wiki pages and the project pages, like the meeting minutes on the wiki, some of the other project documents on the project. So we need to be able to search jointly across these pages to identify who we should be reaching out to. Like somebody wanted wheelchair information, and there's information in some Ethan's project, and so on. So again, one more task for the web team. So thank you. I also want to ask my teammates, since I may not have done the best job of summarizing this. Did I cover most of this? I'll summarize meeting minutes and send it out. I think I may have exhausted my 6 minutes as well. So who's next?
The next person. Thank you. This is Vinay Pathak, who organized the topic, which is donor acquisition and management. And yeah, next 6 minutes.
Cool, thank you. I'll do a 60-slide presentation if you allow. No, I'm serious. Like, if we really get the time to talk about this topic, we really need an extensive session of it stuff. Because the kind of thing and the level of thing we are doing about donor acquisition and donor relationship management and overall is, for lack of better term, I'll say, at least for Seattle chapter, it is pretty pathetic. So, like, keeping that as a starting point in mind is how we approach that. Like, if we have to pretty much start from scratch, what do we want to do? How do we want to go about it? What do we want to look for it? And where, like, if we want to dream, how will we dream? And then come to, okay, reality, like, what can we really do in 6 months to a year? So that is where we started. So our dream started from, like, who are the different people that we want to reach out to? And how do we even classify them? Like, within, what categories we put them in, so that for each of them we have a different strategy in how we are looking at it. So again, I won't bore you with all the details, but I can give you a glimpse of like how we created those categories. So for example, like we created one category was like high net worth individuals. So these are the people who hopefully if we approach and they convince, then they will be mostly like writing a bigger check. Then there was other category which we usually do a better job of as like all the other like individuals who are going to write a smaller check, but they hopefully will be a bigger donor base that will really fund us and be like a real regular pipeline for us. But the other thing that we hardly do is, for example, we go to the corporations and leverage some of their funding sources. And again, there are grants to be written, and there are like other ways that they support. So like even like leveraging that we haven't done much on. Again, then we looked at like from corporations perspective, like there are small enterprises, there are medium-sized enterprises, there are large enterprises. And again, we went deeper into like we can't put all the small enterprises in the same bucket. So we have to have different kind of approaches for each of those organizations when we are reaching out, for each category of organization that we are reaching out, that how and what we do. So then we looked at like that's like categories, and again this is not exhaustive thing that I went over, but these are like how we approach like what kind of like people we want to reach out. Then we looked at again and like our previous speaker, we were like, okay, technology is solution to everything. So we wanted to figure out that okay, what do we want to do or how do we want to go about even interacting and making sure that if we have finite amount of resources in terms of volunteer bandwidth, how do we apply and get maximum out of it in terms of reaching out to donors? There were two things that we came up with. One was we really want a Salesforce or Azure or some that kind of CRM solution that we can leverage to make sure that all the connections that we are having with our donors are really well established and we have the history on our fingertip whenever we want to go about it. And the second thing we came up with was we really need to have a donor ambassador kind of concept. We have become pretty good at, I won't say great at, but we have become pretty good at how we are maintaining our relationship with our project partners. So we have the concept of project stewards, which is very well established. But what we don't have is, I look at that in Asha, we have two arms. One that is reaching out to India and making the impact at grassroots level. And the other arm is where we are reaching out to community here. We are raising the awareness and we are raising fund here. So for this arm, we don't have an ambassador. We don't have people identified who are going and building that relationship in a very thoughtful fashion. So those, we looked at, and then we looked at that, hey, what can we think in terms of what we want to do at the ASA central level, and what we want to do at the ASA individual chapter level, and what we need to do so that we are facilitating different chapters to not work just individually in their locality, but really is able to leverage materials which are sitting again in other places. And most of those answers came to how do we establish, for example, if people are donating but not specifying where their donations should go, who has the responsibility to make sure there is a relationship that is built with that donor. The other piece was, which was all about how do we build different class of PR material as part of our standard workflow. So if you are doing project presentation for getting the annual approval, can we make part of it maybe 6 or 7 categories of PR material that has to be given and then only we approve. It could be simple thing, what are 1-liner, 2-liner we want to fetch if we ever pitch on Twitter. It could be few lines and a picture for what will go on Facebook. It will be a 1-pager that we can bring to any of these kind of events and put it for people to pick. And it could be a proper 3 or 4 slides, presentation that we can use in any event on any chapter. And it could be videos and stories of the projects that are happening that we can share at any location and really use for our newsletter or whatever outreach we want to do. So that was our thought, and we thought, like we can figure out how the central will play into this. It could be that if we really want a couple of professional videos to be made, that could be a central job. If you want anything that is project specific, that comes out of chapter, but goes out of any place where anybody and everybody can pick. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. This is a continuation topic in many senses, which is fundraising. 6 minutes, 2:05.
Right, so we did go through a set of slides that I had compiled, and then Navanita had added some content to it. And I know Vinay and Navanita were working together on the donor management software too. So she's been evaluating some softwares. And it very well ties into what we discussed yesterday. But outside of that, some of the discussion points that came out, I noted them on the wiki. There's a section that linked to the presentation as well. One thing was, I think one of the major things was matching donations and how do we better track it. Right now, matching donations are sort of a little bit of a black hole. Once an employee submits it, and then the company sends over the matching donation, and it somehow hits our bank account. It gets deposited in the bank account, but somehow the volunteer who wants to track it is not able to track it effectively. So Shankar, back at you. That's what you get for throwing work at the vacuum. So there is something that we did discuss is if we could include on our donate page, if we could include a list of companies that we know match donations, and we do have such a list on our work and our website. We just don't have it on the main Asha page. So there is a third-party tool that I recently found out, and Amit and I. So Amit and I have the action item already to integrate that on our donation page. So that way, any donor can look up over there, and because it's a third-party software, that list is maintained by another company. We just have to pay for it. And, they will ensure that the list of companies remains updated, so we don't have to worry about checking whether a company is matching at this point in time or not. Then another thing that was a main takeaway was improving cross-chapter effort between volunteers when it comes to checking on corporate grants and corporate giving campaigns. And the best resources for these are, again, employees who work in these companies. So the good way to go about it would be to encourage chapter volunteers to talk to each other, maybe have a cross-chapter team that keeps track of what companies are running these campaigns, and if there is an employee of a company who shares that information with other chapters, the other chapters will also be able to take advantage of it. So, for example, in our panel, we had a guy from Stanford. He works at Oracle, and he didn't know that Oracle actually does give out corporate grants. And a couple of years ago, Asha Boston got a $100K grant from Oracle. A third point was how do we better engage our recurring donors, and it ties into the donor analysis that I showed yesterday where we're trying to communicate more effectively with our recurring donors, and if they somehow miss a cycle of donation, how do we send a message that doesn't sound demanding but makes like a gentle nudge or an appeal to sort of tell them that hey, you supported us in the past, or you supported this kind of activity in the past, and just send some kind of a gentle reminder. So again, this might be effectively done using the donor management or the CRM software that Vinay and others are trying to research into. A very related theme to that is improving donor engagement at a local chapter level. AID does it very effectively in Boston with the donor appreciation dinner. At Asha Boston, we've started doing thank you cards and thank you emails to our donors. But these are all isolated programs run by individual chapters, and if we can leverage this and expand this to all chapters somehow. And again, for this, the most effective team to implement this would be the central PR team. You just need volunteers for that. It's not a small problem. Work an hour was a main talking point. Work an hour has been our organization-wide campaign for many years now. It used to be one of our biggest fundraisers, but in the last 2 years, we've seen declining returns from that campaign. So the thing that came up was a lot of chapters thought that they lack motivation for participating in the Work in Our campaign, and what can be done to improve that motivation level to allow chapters to effectively publicize Work in Our projects. And despite the fact that we already have a matching grant program, so some chapters get extra funds from general funds if they happen to raise over $1,000. A final thing that's again on my plate as webmaster is we realized on our donation page, if somebody wants to donate an amount, they have to manually enter what amount they want to donate. It may be easier to show them certain pre-configured amounts, say $25, $50, $100, and then have a box for any other amount. That sort of encourages them to choose from another pre-configured amounts and makes it easier for donors to improve their experience, and that may lead to better or higher donations. So I have them on the wiki already. The web team stuff that is actionable on the web team is something I take the responsibility to implement. And for the cross-chapter effort, I think we should do a follow-up call and take this forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Asha. Before we move to the next, just a small announcement. I know some people have to leave. So if you're leaving, please do fill out the feedback form. But we have some more sessions, so you're not obligated to fill if you're not leaving right away or before the sessions end. And with that, if you also have any questions with each speaker that is going by, please do make a note of the questions. We have a session which is after this, which is going to be taken over by Uttara, fast forward, during which we'll have some questions and also discussions. But right now, as a short session, Uttara, you have one more right now, which is on, this is the most favorite topic, volunteer recruitment, accountability, and retention. With that, Uttara.
Are you guys still awake? Wake up! Yeah, there's coffee outside. So my breakout group, we were tasked with volunteer recruitment, retention, and accountability, which is my personal favorite topic. And we had pre-discussions, and we basically agreed, because it's such a big issue, to address 2 points. So one was how to attract volunteers, and the second was how to hold volunteers accountable. So for the first one, I think, based on our discussion, what we kind of agreed is that how to a lot of times we inherently get volunteers, but we don't do a good job on the follow through, which is required in order to actually recruit them fully. So we might have volunteers that express interest and then they'll send us an email and I've done that too, where I just don't have time and it's been 3 weeks and I haven't even responded to them. So I think what some of the action items that we came up with, and I think I'm gonna focus these 6 minutes on just action items that we took away as opposed to kind of talking about the problem, because I think we all know what the problems are. So one is that volunteers are motivated when they first come in. We just need to do a better job at engaging them right away. So within that first 30 to 40 day period, we need to have established lists of kind of things that they can do. So most of the time, so some of the things that have worked for some chapters is a buddy system. So Seattle, as soon as there's a volunteer, they assign a buddy, and then the buddy is responsible for meeting with them one-on-one, getting coffee, kind of gauging where that interest is, and then channeling them into the right kind of area so they can talk to that person. Second would be consistent onboarding and training materials. I think we can all agree there's a lot of people in this room that we don't all understand what's happening at Asha. So how can we get people caught up so they see the full breadth of what Asha is doing and not just specific to the chapter? The next thing would be having clear definitions of roles and responsibilities, because a lot of times people or volunteers kind of get lost in the shuffle. They don't know what they're supposed to do as a new volunteer, so they don't do anything, and then they lose interest, and then we can never really engage them. The biggest suggestion also was having a task list already prepared at a chapter level of kind of easy win things, because a lot of times people, when they first come, they want to feel good. They want personal enrichment. They are coming because they want to feel like they're making a difference. We need to have a list of things that are ready for them. It could be little things like convert this site visit, summarize it, and make it into a blog post, right? We need blog posts. We want this new volunteer to read a site visit, so it hits multiple birds with one stone, plus they feel like they did something in their first 30 days, and they get a better idea of Asha. So having that task list ready ahead of time before the volunteer approaches you. That way you're not wasting your time 3 weeks later. Also establishing kind of a community aspect. So a buddy system plays into that, but also just more social events where people want to feel like they're part of the community. They want to meet people that they get along with, share views with, that kind of stuff. And one of the other things was creating a volunteer survey, which I actually think we've discussed this with Sneak. We've recently discussed creating a volunteer survey at an Asha-wide level. And I'm actually curious to get everyone's input on whether it would be beneficial if kind of the way a company might run like a human capital survey, if we ran an Asha-wide volunteer survey. I guess my question is, we're willing to put in the time, right? But is our chapters going to use that data? Like, would you guys find it helpful if we ran the survey? Would anyone look at that data and process it? Because a lot of these things might not be able to be implemented at the central level. It's the chapter's culture, right? So we can provide the mechanism to run a survey to all volunteers, but I'm curious to get people's thoughts on whether they would actually use the data, or is this gonna be one of those 10,000 emails that you get from me that you archive? Which I do to a lot of people too. No one? Anyone?
I have thoughts with this.
Okay, we can listen. So that was that. And also, again, I guess the other takeaway from a recruitment standpoint is that we need to be, if we want to recruit people, we need to be focused on what is personally enriching to them. So finding out what they're really interested in, whether it's the project side, the fundraising side, someone like me, it might be the treasury side, right? So, and using them only for that purpose, because they're more likely to feel engaged and motivated. And then the second part of our thing was accountability, which is by far my favorite topic at Asha. How do we hold people accountable who sign up for something to actually execute it in a timely manner, even though we're working with volunteers. So the biggest action items or things that work, it seemed like, was just having someone in your chapter who's willing to play the bad cop. So whether it's your chapter coordinator who make a list of action items, ask the volunteer who's volunteering for it to set a timeline themselves. Say, hey, you're Akshay volunteered to do the matching donation into the portal. How long is it going to take you? And then have someone who literally says, if you said it will take me 2 weeks, 2 weeks later, someone needs to follow up with you saying, hey, you said 2 weeks. What is the status of this, right? And we should be willing, even though it's a volunteer organization, to ask for statuses, and we should be willing to provide statuses, because unless we learn to hold each other accountable and respect the fact that someone is going to hold us accountable, we're just gonna kind of stagnate and not file our tax returns for 4 years. The other thing was to force people to give updates. So someone suggested that in their meetings, they always say progress, issues, or goals. So if you have a task at every meeting, you have to report what is the progress, and if there's no progress, what is the issue, and if there's an issue, then what is the goal to address the issue? Which is an interesting, if you make everyone kind of vocalize it, it might get people moving, which flows into our last thing, which I think everyone agreed, was that if you're more transparent about what you're committing to, or if you make people more transparent and make it visible what people are committing to, they're more likely to follow through. It's just human nature. That as opposed to saying, like me just talking to Dinesh and saying, Dinesh, I'll do this for you. If I told everyone at the chapter meeting, hey guys, I'm volunteering to do this, and Dinesh then told everyone, hey, Uttara is responsible for this, Uttara is more likely to do it because I'm gonna be embarrassed if everyone's like waiting for me to do it and I've dropped the ball. So that's kind of what we talked about. This will probably come up in the next session, which is the path forward.
Thank you. All the moderators, by the way, it's all good notes, so we would like to have that posted somewhere. We'll get back to you with where the posting should be. Probably wikis, which are good for that, as you mentioned, they'll start using it for good ways. And the next session is exploring new paths forward for Asha's future. PJ nominated Kyle Shah, who's taking over now.
Okay, so we were at the Exploring Asha's Path Forward group, and what we started with was looking at the pre-discussion items that people had filled out in a document, and so those involved projects and just different thoughts around that, leveraging shared knowledge projects, community empowerment, etc. It involved volunteers, internal processes, and then we thought, there's individual groups for these, so you guys will handle it, and we'll focus on the future of Asha. So we kind of shifted our focus on, PJ focuses on like 25, 30 years from now, where do we want to be as an organization, right? What do we want to have accomplished in that time, and what do we want to be focusing on at that point in time? So we started having conversations and like debates on that, and there's a lot of bright thoughts, and it's not something that has an easy answer, a quick answer. It's going to be something that we're going to have to continue to discuss. And that's kind of one of our action items, is to continue the discussion over an email thread, over a call. But really focusing on that question, next 25, 30 years of Asha, and is our current mission the one that's going to help us realize the goals we want to realize? So our current mission is to catalyze socioeconomic change through the education of underprivileged children in India. Now, how do we measure that we've actually done that in 25, 30 years? Like, what are our goals? And is that really our goal? Or is it more around primary education or something else, right, that we want to achieve? And through that discussion, we decided to just take a second look at our mission statement and see if that is the actual mission that we want to, to advocate behind, or is it something we want to modify? A couple other things we touched upon were looking at how Asha can help create sustainable communities within the local communities that we're serving. Should Asha get involved in activism? It was a topic that came up throughout this conference, and it's something that we could look at. And then the other part of it, not the project side, not the external side, but internally, how can we become a world-class leadership development program and offer peer-to-peer mentoring, right? So really empowering the leaders of tomorrow, creating a structured approach to doing that. So that's kind of where we left it at. The next steps, as I mentioned, is just everyone's sending a one-sentence proposal to PJ, just as a topic we want to discuss or look at, and then just continuing to have conversations around that. And my group members, if there's anything I missed or did not represent correctly.
Theory of change.
Oh, theory of change, thank you, yes, yeah. So PJ brought up this idea of theory of change, which is defined as what is your goal and your path to getting to that goal. So really looking at that, what is our ultimate goal and how we're going to get there. And that is when we're looking at our mission statement, looking at it from that perspective. Thank you. Richie. Any questions? Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, next topic is the most favorite topic of Asha, projects. Projects which is on Asha's side, how the proposal, evaluation, and funding efficiencies and other things which are related to projects by Aparna.
I think this is going to be the shortest one of them all. Let's see. So we also started by discussing things that we had gotten in the pre-conference emails. So we had a document of what are the biggest pain points of what we want to discuss. There were actually 6 topics we only got around to discussing 2. So I'll talk about the recommendations of 2. The first one was site visits. Whoever has been a project steward has always had issues with site visits. So there were 3 questions that we tried to answer. First one was how to address the problem of not being able to find a volunteer for the site visit, which is probably the biggest problem. The second one was how to do an effective site visit. So when I look at the checklist, I see tons of projects where the site visit is, oh, I went there, I spoke to 2 children, I ate some food and I came back, which is not really giving us the kind of picture that we want. And the third topic, which was raised by Jeshi, was about how to make sure that the project that we are actually supporting are genuine. Because as all of us know, there are a lot of people who are out there to make money. So she gave an example, and that was also something we discussed. So I'm also going to talk about action items. The first part, which deals with finding volunteers for site visits. So this has been an idea which has been around, which was having paid site visits. But the important thing that came out of the discussions, and which is also what Sandeepji mentioned, was not to have any random person go to the site visit, but actually find an experienced volunteer who we can support for travel and whatever it is, for him or her to actually go and do the site visit. So the recommendation which we came out with was to actually have an expert panel who can, which could be people like Jesh, and I'm going to hold her to it, or people like Padmanava, or Melly, or Swati, who have been with Asha, who understand the context and who also have a background in education, for them to either do the site visits for themselves, and it doesn't have to be necessarily being paid, doesn't have to be paid. If they are willing to go by themselves, that's fine. But if we have to find someone who has to do the site visits, then this panel will actually evaluate the person first, or we will have a set of pre-evaluated people who we think are good enough to go to the site visit, who are capable enough of figuring out whether the project is genuine by asking them the right kind of questions and so on. The other thing which came out was we should open some collaborative channels with universities or organizations like the Tata Institute of Social Sciences and have a formal collaboration in terms of internships of students who are working on the PhDs and such, for them to go around in a particular region and spend a week there and try to understand what they're doing. So that was one of the recommendations. The second one was, as a volunteer, as an Asha volunteer who was in the United States, if I go, how do I do an effective site visit? So one of the recommendations that came out was do shadow site visits. So you first try to pair the person to go with an experienced volunteer if it is possible. And then we learn from them what are the things that we have to look for, what are the questions that we have to ask to actually do a good job. Then there were some general recommendations, which could be guidelines, which were always have multiple day site visits, because that is when you can get to interact with the entire community and make some sense of it. A couple of things that Jayeshi wanted me to mention were the frequency of site visits should depend on the stage what stage the organization is in running the process. So if they're just starting up, maybe have more frequent site visits. I don't know how much this is going to be possible, but it's just a recommendation. And the last one was to have a feedback loop to that person who actually visited, because it turns out that bunch of times people have done site visits and they sent a report and there was no communication from the chapter back. So they don't know what happened, they don't know what was followed. The second one was around project evaluation, and the only question we got around to discussing was, hey, I'm a new volunteer. I have this proposal in front of me. I have no idea whether the proposal looks good or not. How can I say whether this is a proposal that is worth the money that we get from donations, and that money will be used effectively if I were to fund this? So the larger chapters have some organizational memory and the new volunteers can learn from it, but how about the new people? And how can we make this more streamlined? So again, this group of experts idea also came back again, that we should have this advisory committee. And that goes back to what Melly was saying yesterday about how there is no avenue for experienced volunteers to do something more. But that could be something that we can do to create this group of experts. So if I have questions, I have this resource available to me who I can reach out to and ask them questions saying, hey, could you look at this? Could you tell me what do you think about this? What is good and what is not? So that is something that we can work on right away to figure out, to actually make this expert committee and define the responsibilities and get buy-in from them. The next few things that came out were something that you can do on our end easily. So first one was compiling statistics across different states, across different geographies and across project types. So that this is very particular to the budget amounts that we're funding for various things to say, hey, in this region, this person is asking me so much for, say, midday meals for so many students. Is that number consistent? Does that number look good? So things like that. The second suggestion around having effective evaluations was to attend other chapter meetings. So maybe you have a chapter nearby, or maybe you can talk to a chapter which has many experienced volunteers. You just sit in on their meetings, see what kind of questions they ask, and vice versa. Like have other people come and join your meetings and try to learn from them. The biggest thing which the group was most enthusiastic about was have project selection workshops. So maybe have a workshop of some kind, maybe a few hours, where you can again get this advisory panel, which can give us some brief overview about what are the kind of things that we should look for in a proposal, what kind of things they think are more important for us to look at. So give some sort of guidelines. So create a workshop and have some material saved from that. A couple other suggestions that came out were making annual and financial reports mandatory for doing project disbursements to have some sort of accountability. Right now, this is not an item in the checklist which is required. Most chapters do enforce it at their end, which is good, but having it required for everyone would be good to have some accountability. And also, as an organization, what are tenets for prioritization? So what kind of projects do we actually want to fund? Because the education umbrella and our mission statement is pretty large. So some guidelines about tenets for prioritization. And then also sharing the decision-making framework. So I was looking at the wiki today morning, and it looks like a lot of these things are on the wiki, but people actually don't know about it. So like I saw project selection, decision-making frameworks from Seattle and a couple of other chapters. So again, it goes back to what Uttara was saying, like how do we present this information in a consumable way so that any new volunteer who comes in is aware of them. That's it.
Now is the last topic. Please have your questions ready. After the last topic, we're going to have it open session with Uttara and others who will be ready for answering. The last topic is the projects also, which is on the field side, which is India side, which is the most toughest and also enriching experience. And Anuradha is going to take it.
Okay, so similar to the previous talk, sent out a bunch of questions and Google document for the interested parties prior to this conference, and had people vote on top 3 topics of interest. And out of these 2 topics were shortlisted. The first one was something we've discussed this morning, and it's been something, the theme of the conference. How do we create a common, easily accessible knowledge base between Asha project stewards, and Asha project partners, and also between Asha project partners themselves? So before I get started, I'm going to use a lot of words. I'm going to define a few terms here so we're all on the same page. Project partners are NGO partners. Project stewards are all of us, whoever are working with the project NGO partners. So for all practical purposes, we call project partners are the people on the ground in India. So before we even got started, it occurred to me that close to 90% of the people in the room had no idea that we have 2 separate common email groups, one for all Asha project stewards. So that is the project groups at ashanet.org. And there is another email group, which is all Asha project partners in India, all Asha project stewards here, and anybody else who wants to be on that group, so that you can get any information ranging from anything related to, hey, here's a call for a grant, here's funding. By the way, there are floods in India, so is your project affected? You need funding, anything under the sky. So this would be all of us here in the US, project stewards, and also our NGO project partners. So that email list is project partners at ashanet.org. And for the stewards, it's projects group at ashanet.org. So once this became clear, we decided that this needs to be on a checklist. So the next time Treasury approves the checklist, there needs to be a line item there where it says, project steward, are you subscribed to projects group at ashanet.org? And B, are you and this particular project NGO partner on the project's partners at ashanet.org email? And only then the checklist gets approved. So that was one of very good action item that came out of it. Then the next thing was that we could edit the current existing ashanet.org website, from which I pretty much gathered all the information for my talk yesterday. So as you can see, there is significant information there. So use that as a database and add an additional filter. So web team Akshay, I'm sorry, but one more action item for you is, now we have multiple filters where we can filter it through project type. So we have community awareness, intervention, and so on. So in addition to that, we need one more drop-down menu for expertise provided by the project. That way, it's an easily searchable list of projects who project stewards here can access. In addition, project partners, NGO partners who are web savvy, will also be able to easily search on the ashanet.org website. Then the next action item that came out, of course, I think it's been said a million times, the wiki needs to be easily searchable. There is significant amount of information there, and we all need to work towards editing the wiki and making it easily searchable, cleaning it up, and so on. And the final question, a challenge that also came up was that the current reason where we have, say, for example, one of our largest projects, Reward Trust, which is being supported by more than 10 or 11 separate chapters, many times there is so much of information out there, either because the stewards didn't know that they are supporting a similar project, the same NGO, but it's being supported also by Boston and say like somewhere from Florida to like Silicon Valley and so on. So that's been an issue. The second issue is that, say for example, if we have, I'm going to use Asha Atlanta supported project as an example. We have a project called Gram Vikas Trust, an NGO called Gram Vikas Trust. Asha Atlanta supports vocational training, Shikshana teacher training, and cycle program. Asha Shafiq supports supported child programs. Asha Dallas supports primary education. The thinking currently, and Uttara, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, according to Abhiday and the others I've talked to, is that if GVT and is getting funds for supported child, it should be a separate Asha page. GVT gets funds for vocational training, separate page. GVT gets funds for private education, separate page. So this has been ongoing, and my understanding was this was a requirement according to Abhiday, IRS, blah, 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 so PBD. But if that is the case, no matter what, we need to have one NGO page, and under that, a nested set of project pages. So that way, we say, okay, here's an NGO, these are all the expertise they can provide, and under that, if you want, we can have nested project pages. One project page for the bicycle project, one project page for the vocational training program and so on. But as long as Asha is affiliated with a single NGO, we need to find it through a single project partner webpage. So that was one action item. And monthly conference calls. Prema, I believe, had sent out an email. Again, she had sent this out to chapters at ashanet.org. So in addition to, if you are a project steward and you are not subscribed to projects group at ashanet.org, you should have received emails from chapters at ashanet.org. Otherwise, strongly recommend you edit your spam filters, because clearly you're missing out on a lot of emails. So we are, sorry.
Chapters ad only goes to chapter 4.
Course, yes,
Yeah,
okay.
so I'll forward, I guess we have to forward that to all the volunteers.
I think, yeah, then we should send it to all volunteers, yes. But if you're a steward, then at least, or if you're a chapter project coordinator or your chapter coordinator should have sent you that email. But the bottom line is we are looking to have monthly conference calls for project partners, NGO partners, stewards, and pretty much anybody under the sky who's interested. So for that, some of the recommendations that came up was that we have project partners who have significant wealth of knowledge but are not web savvy and so on. So we need to have, at least for the time being, an easily accessible sign-up sheet where people can say, I can talk on this topic. And then the conference call, we have 12 separate topics listed for the entire year, and different project partners, and we assign the time depending upon the number of people who sign up for a given topic. And then also make sure that this reaches every volunteer. And if it goes to the spam filter, haven't helped them. But at least we've done our due diligence. So that was the first piece. And the second piece was impact and measurement. And it pretty much, I think, it was an interesting discussion to say. Let's just say that we have a very strongly divided set of people. One group of people who thought that site visits are sufficient, and they are a qualitative assessment of the quality of the project. And there was another set of people, a very minimum set of people in that group, who thought that site visits will help you stay alive, but I think you need more effective characterization. And we decided that because this was too contentious an issue, because we would have a lot of pushback from our NGO partners, this is too much data, you're asking us too much information, and being able to access any tool, or how are you even going to get this started? So yes, it's a huge elephant in the room, but I think it needs to be discussed. And the recommendation came that we need to have a poll to even talk about impact and metrics.
There's currently an ARC proposal up about input metrics. So.
Yeah, the input matrix, there is an ARC proposal, and the follow-up would be, I think what we're expecting to do is, at least from the central projects team, do some amount of work and research and background, maybe some pilot programs and so on. So if anybody is interested in working with me, please reach out to me, abulusu@gmail.com, or you can reach out to the projects, Asha projects, what's the email? Asha? projects@asha.org, and please reach out to me, and we'll take it from there. But this is definitely going to be a strongly discussed topic at the next conference. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Thank you. We'll open it up to questions, and yeah, we could be seated for one. But before we move forward, I want to thank the entire Asha conference team, primarily Team Seattle. Special mention. Can you please come up here? All of those children who are around the conference. Prima, Rich, Suji, Balaji, Vinay Padak, Latana, probably not here, Pradeep, Peter, Srinivas, Rajesh, Kavita, Garima, Navadinda, Prashant, Rao. If I missed out any names, apologies, but everybody who has been hosting, taking people to airports, organizing, giving us food, giving us tea, fish, yeah, I said fish. So this is all the Seattle team, and of course they're representing others who are not here. And the most special mention goes to Sneetu, without whom we would have given up at some point. Followed by Sunil from UC, please. And Vinny from NYC, and they also helped out in sending us wherever you are. Come on over. No, don't worry. So, yeah, I was also there. So, yeah, I sent an email. So this is. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Uttara has to, right? No option. You don't need a mention, but please. Uttara was.
She just attended 20
Yeah,
conference calls.
Conference calls and helped us make some decisions.
I can tell you Sneetu and Shailaja, but
Okay, so thank you so much, guys. And if someone wants to take a picture, please take that. Okay. I'm needed. I thought I was stuck.
I thought you were part of.
Okay. Please take us.
Uttara, last call. Last call. You can get in.
Uttara,
Going once,
come on.
going twice.
You don't have to feel bad. I just forgot you. Yeah, but it's okay. I'm watching you guys. Okay. Thank you, folks. See. Thank you, Rajesh.
Rajesh,
Oh, Rajesh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is the guy who's for the last 2 days here. Now we have some interesting questions, and Uttara can start taking one question, followed by there are some good project-based questions. And where's PJ? PJ, you're needed. Oh, he's here. Questions. Question to Uttara, I think, because this looks a little complicated. Question is, can Asha continue its 501c3 status in US if we get into activism? There are regulations against this. I don't know who wrote this, but that's the question. Question is, can Asha continue with 501c3?
No, I think we need to register as a 501c4. I think Gary and I talked about that yesterday. So if you engage in any kind of activism in the US or try to influence any laws in the US, you need to, you can't be a 501c3. But I'm still not sure if you support an activism cause in India and try to get a law influence in India, how the whole relationship works. So we will need to consult with attorneys and Gary to kind of figure this out. Yes, they do, but we don't know if they have evaluated the legal implications of that.
Thank you. I think you can hear. Question, it's a mixed question, written as projects India side, exploring new paths and fundraising for action. And the question is, there is definitely a certain underrepresented states like Northeast or Goa or Jammu and Kashmir or Sikkim which deserve to get more projects. Why are we not doing that? Projects question. Why are we not represented more in some of the Northeastern or Goa or Sikkim? Yeah. How do we do that?
Yeah, so we do have projects in the Northeast. So there are few in far in between, but the biggest challenge has been site visits. A, and then B has also been the amount of any project that receives funds from the USD, they come under a lot of scrutiny. And so they end up with a lot of extortion and those kind of things. So that is from the project partner side. So they have those challenges, but outside of that, we still are supporting Asha, Darshan Trust, which I had highlighted yesterday, and they are getting funds from Asha for education. But just from supporting projects in the Northeast, we definitely do. We have a project success, which is basically they have 5 schools that they're running in 5 different areas of Manipur, if I'm not mistaken, and Assam, Manipur border. And the challenge, I think, Tapo, as I talked about it yesterday, ended up doing a site visit within his first 3 months of being an Asha volunteer. It's a miracle he still continues being one, because it was basically a very, very life and death situation for him to conduct that site visit, but it got us really, really valuable insights. It was, so there is that. So, oh really, I mean, thank you for that, because it was also a very, very well-funded project, but we needed somebody to do a site visit, otherwise the funds were getting blocked and so on, close to more than $100,000. So that's the other challenge why we don't have projects. But yes, please, if you are from the Northeast, strongly encourage you to come to us and reach out with any projects you have in mind. Bear in mind that we would be asking you to do site visits.
The next question is more generic, probably to the secretary, Becky. Okay. How do someone subscribe to all the various mailing lists? I mean, this is a generic question because let's say some emails go to chapters at Asha, for example. So if the project coordinator, chapter coordinator is, for instance, not checking every day or whatever, so there could be a lag and it's not needed, especially if there are any active volunteers. How do they, for instance, all volunteers list, how do they subscribe? Or, yeah.
There's one list called All Volunteers, all.volunteers at ashanet.org that goes to everybody. Oh,
sure. Apart from the all volunteers list, there are also role-based lists. So project stewards have their own lists, and webmasters have their own, treasurers have their own. All of these lists are managed by the webmaster through our Google admin account. And there is a compilation of lists on the wiki page. Just search for email communication or search for mailing lists in the wiki, and you'll get to that page. And then it's a long list. Subscribe to whatever list you feel based on your interests. I don't think anybody will stop you from subscribing.
And if you don't have a wiki login?
If you don't have a wiki login, I can create one right now for you guys. And for chapter volunteers, on the wiki homepage, there is a on the right side of that page, there is a form that is linked. Submit information for your fellow chapter volunteers, and I'll have it created.
I think only ashanet.org can access that form.
Yes. So I mean, we have to have some way of ensuring that the information submitted to that form is valid and it's coming from a valid Asha source. So that's why it's limited to ashanet.org.
So are there chapter counterparts of these lists, like chapters, stewards and CIT chapters?
there is. Well, I don't know if there's stewards, but there's the chapter name dot treasurer, chapter name dot project, chapter name dot webmaster. But
So we can create, if there is a need for additional mailing lists inside a chapter, we can create them.
The fourth rate is that you have project coordinator, treasurer, that level of list very well defined.
Right.
The list like project stewards at a chapter or volunteers at a chapter, those are not very defined.
You can, yeah, those are not defined because not every chapter needs them. Take a big chapter like Seattle, which probably has 25-30 stewards, might need it. A smaller chapter like Athens, which only has 2 or 3 projects, may not need it. So,
we should talk afterwards.
Yeah.
The more we standardize, the better it is.
but yeah, more lists can be created. There is absolutely no restriction on that.
What is the question again?
No, that was how to subscribe to all the various mailing lists. I'm sorry, I mixed up. It had to be Akshay who is right here, but master, not going key secretary.
You need to find a question for him.
Yeah.
He's eager to answer questions.
Yeah, no. That's it.
No more questions?
No, for him for now. Okay, the next question is, we hold projects accountable as, or at least aim to do so. Who is holding chapters accountable for funding delays? Who is holding chapters accountable in case of funding delays?
He's not here right now.
No, that's actually not true. He is not holding anyone accountable for funding delays. His job, I want to be very clear, and he's very good at his job, is to make sure the checklists go through in a clean way. From an audit standpoint, he serves as a double check. He is not responsible for the working capital ratio that is currently high. That is the chapter's issue. Abhyuday does not reach out, and the central team does not reach out saying you're sitting on a lot of cash. We can start doing that, and the mechanism to do that has been the working capital ratio ARC that was passed. But I will stick up for Abhyuday here and say he is not responsible for this.
Okay, Snehtu, I know what your question is. I know. So, absolutely no one is holding chapters accountable. It's the chapter volunteers who have to hold themselves accountable. Asha is decentralized. I mean, we all know that.
So it was not a question for the central team alone. It was a question for everybody because we love getting reports from our project partners and told them, why is nobody checking on the chapters and yourselves?
Right, exactly, and that needs to come from the chapters. It needs to come within the chapters. Is my point.
So let's go to secretary to hear like how do you look at chapter health? And if you're looking at chapter health, why is the project partner feedback or project partner not getting supported in timely fashion is not part of that evaluation?
Yeah, it should be.
I wanted something for you.
It could be, yes, it can definitely be. Anything that you want to add, you're very welcome. We will add those things. We started collecting, I think, chapter health more recently, and we do not have. And even recently, I think we had some discussion to add a few more questions to it. So, yes.
For the data analytics people, it's actually there in that checklist database. There's a date of the meeting minutes where the funding was decided, and the date the checklist was filed, and then the date the funds actually go out. So someone can just pull that data out and then see which chapter.
When the proposal was sent.
Oh, from the proposal.
It needs to be based on self-reporting information from the chapters, which we know how accurate that is.
Exactly.
So again,
there are a lot of projects with recurring funds, right? Like if the workflow itself hasn't started, we should catch them. So I'm just saying
the only problem
to
is
check
that
some
not all chapters, not all projects have regular funding requirements. Sometimes the projects themselves say we have enough. So a bit of it is not completely automated, I would say.
Yeah, that's where that level of data we can ask from chapter as part of chapter.
I will point out that all of the chapter health questionnaire questions is, we go by what the chapters say. So at the end of the day, you have to be honest about what we say. Otherwise, we cannot get any data. What I'm saying is there's no way we are monitoring and taking any information. We just go by what is written in the chapter. What do you feel?
Yeah, I think this is the flip side of a decentralized structure. We can't really hold chapters accountable more because we don't have access to information. We're struggling to get, the honest reality is we're struggling to get even half the chapters to fill in the basic chapter health questionnaire that's out there now. I'll gripe against this all day, right? The decentralized structure has made it so that chapters don't feel the need to respond to chapter health questionnaire. So could we add a bunch of questions? Sure. But how, the holding accountable, we can't even hold chapters accountable, fill in the chapter health questionnaire, let alone hold chapters accountable to the answers in the questions. That's the reality. So if we want to go down this path, we need to think about how the structure works. How do we just create a culture where
you're required to fill in the health questionnaire, and it's not just a slap on the wrist. You get put on hold for 3 days, then you wake up and then it's like, okay, I was on hold, now I'm awake, sorry, take my hold off.
Checklist. Put it in the checklist.
Which is what we do.
It is, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess we could start putting all these things into checklists because these are coming from an open forum, but then I think the feedback we get is checklist process is so cumbersome. We don't want to do the checklist. So I think we need to all kind of agree on what the mechanism is. If the goal is for the central team to hold people accountable, we can start doing that, but that changes the culture a little. So let's just be honest from both perspectives on what we see the future.
So I was more focusing on the attitude of people more than asking the central team to do something or the chapter. We can figure out how to do it.
Volunteers
But
do more site visits because
it's the attitude, right? We love asking questions when somebody is doing a project proposal. When we go for vacation or whatever XYZ, we don't answer anybody. Why? I find the checklist 2 months late. Who asked me? Nobody. In the end, somebody did not get money. Their livelihoods depend on that. Who's asking me?
So then it boils down to having volunteers do site visits. So then they develop a personal connection and they understand that today, if I'm slacking off, honestly, that is the only way you will decide that if I'm slacking off on submitting a checklist, this kid who I went and then played with me and did a dance in front of me is probably not going to go to school or starve at lunch.
So how about we provide avenue for the project partner to give feedback on us?
Right. We could do that.
We could take a survey, an anonymous survey from them, and they should not feel that if they're giving us feedback, we're going to stop their funding because they're all scared of that.
Right, yeah, I mean, we actually tried a couple of surveys. Feedbacks came back extremely positive because they did not understand that it's completely anonymous and they were afraid that funding was going to get stopped. Right? So I guess it's probably more a communication issue, telling them that yeah, you can say whatever you want, it's fine. Malik has
Sure.
Yeah, Sandeep, do you want to
I
share?
wanted to make a comment on the issue of trying to get more projects from Northeast. Actually, it just struck me after that Northeast has very good literacy rates. Mizoram, Tripura, Himachal Pradesh. So Mizoram is, I think, the second best after Kerala. So what I think we need to look at is which section of population your project is benefiting. So the most deprived sections in terms of literacy are Dalits, minorities, and among minorities, Muslims, girls, and tribals. So I think that should be the criteria, whether we are being able to reach out to. And the second thing which Prashant pointed out, and which is very important, is that we have to also because the quality of decision making will change. So the diversity index here should also be very high. And I don't see any Muslim, or I don't know whether there is any Dalit volunteer in this room. But Dalit and Muslim volunteers, tribal you will not get. Women are well represented. But I think Muslim and Dalit volunteers we should actively try to induct in Asha. There is a Dalit group of North America which has helped a student in IIT BHU to continue his education. This was a Valmiki kid who had a loan of 2,70,000 rupees. That money was raised by IIT BHU alumni of Western India, based in Mumbai. But so his loan was repaid by this group, but to help him continue his education, this group is actively working, based in New York, Washington area. So if we interact with these groups, maybe some of them will be happy to work with us, and then we'll be able to reach out to the children.
Sorry, going back also to the funding delays before we move on, maybe what we need to do is evaluate our kind of what's driving the funding delays on our part. So is it that the checklist process is too cumbersome? Is it that we don't have time, we don't have bandwidth, and then there's clearly something that's driving those problems, so we should identify that and then try to address that problem. Because funding delays are a byproduct of some other problem. It's not like someone, people are maliciously delaying funding. It's whether it's
one-time pickup of changing to the new system, uploading documents differently. So that was, I guess, one funding cycle we had to go through that.
But that was just this year. The delay has been.
It's very systemic problem.
Yeah, again, the central banking system and FCRA changes, those were one-time pickups. So,
right.
Some of it is voluntary accountability, right?
It comes down to accountability or bandwidth or whatever.
Well, also, I just want to point out, we should figure out at what point are we talking about delays? Is it when it was proposed and after it was approved? Then it's completely on us. But if there are legitimate questions, there will be natural delays.
Those are actually the significant minority.
Yeah, I think this question is more addressed at when the proposal came in, but before it even got put up for discussion, let's say. That's probably the core problem area. The rest I think most likely we can agree it's on ourselves. Once it's discussed, if we haven't done the rest, there's not much to discuss, right? It's an accountability issue.
Two thoughts. One is in my personal opinion, the chapter coordinator's responsibility. Like chapter coordinators, probably one of the most important tasks is to ensure all tracks are in order. So chapter coordinator has a much greater role to play in this concept. Secondly, many industries have like a peer review concepts, like accounting firms, law firms. They kind of do peer reviews. So another way could be like chapters in the same region could kind of hold each other kind of accountable in an honest, responsible way. So like, if there are chapters close to each other, they could collaborate, and that probably a good side advantage would be, greater communication between chapters in the same region.
Yeah.
So the way government works, like checks and balance between multiple, like judiciary takes care of the government takes care of the president, Congress, and like that. We can
Technically, I guess.
Technically, yeah. We can have inter-chapter accountability, like what Snake was asking for chapter, can ask the chapter what's going on, something like that. To check why haven't this kind of funding?
Can a project partner contact, so he contacts the chapter, he does not get a response from the chapter, say for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and can he contact a central project team that
They can and they do.
they do?
We can also set a reminder for ourselves, like 1 year after the previous funding, if most of the funding has gone out, we can take notes to where the chapter, we can send out an automatic email and ask what's going on.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we can do that, but we should be taking this is not a systematic thing to an extent. Some projects might need it twice, 3 times. Some might not need it for 2 years. I mean, we can set up automatic reminders if that's going to make people happy. If that's just going to be another email that people ignore, it's not going to really address the issue.
I think I agree with what Mohit said. We send a lot of project proposals that come our way to project coordinators, asking them to evaluate, and we put the responsibility on them. And most of the times it's because of the volunteer bandwidth that they don't go further. So I think part of it is also a volunteer problem, and the next part is, for example, in Seattle, we get some proposals, we look at it and go, oh, did any other chapter fund it? Then it's easier for us to fund it. So we kind of lean towards those projects than a brand new site was written on that evaluation process. So if we kind of know ahead of time that these projects are needing more funding or something like that, we need to make the process easier for other chapters. Actually start the process.
So the other thing I look at is our chapter coordinator. I'm using the same set of tool set that I was using 10 years back. So if you don't enable chapter coordinator within the same bandwidth to do a better and more effective job, or even be able to get a pulse of what things are happening, what things are not happening in time, and so on. And in business terms, if you're not giving a dashboard to chapter coordinator, don't expect the chapter coordinator to really have the knowledge to be able to go knock on the doors or call people to get things done in the right way. So we really need to up our technology or some workflow or whatever investment so that we have a good task tracking and other things, so that things go from green to yellow to red, and it goes to like different level of visibility. And those are the things we want to have in hand when we are talking in chapter meeting and so on, to say, hey, here are the things, every 2 weeks we are meeting, here are the things that, let's first solve that before we go about doing any other part of the business. So if we can go and do something like that, then we can make our chapters and our organization more accountable.
So Vinay, we do have a task tracker available.
Give us the dashboard and we'll talk.
More reporting, like even for project coordinators for my 7 or 8 projects, I had to rely on my inbox to find the pulse of those projects. So
Yeah, so I think actually in my session, and I forgot to mention this, the volunteer accountability sessions, someone had brought up, they use task management apps like Trello that across the chapter, so you can assign people tasks and you can follow up where the tasks is. So something like that possibly at an Asha-wide level might be interesting.
So looks like central theme, of course, obviously as a chapter myself, we all look for a lot of help, but you definitely also need a lot of help because it's just some people. So I think one suggestion that we could make as a conference outcome is that maybe you should open up the roles that you need, like for instance, webmaster, under which if you have some people that you need, or a new category of volunteer retention, or so open up those roles so people would apply for those, and maybe there are a lot of people who are interested. We never know.
So, when all of us were just coming out and giving action items from the breakout conference, what we wanted to do in the last session was to sign people up. And I think what we can do is sign up someone for this right now, other volunteers who can help us build a task group or a task dashboard. Right, so we have Jira where it doesn't give you nice colors and customize. Or okay, if someone who can take Jira and customize it for the way we want it, right?
But if it's built into the wiki, I feel like people are turned off by the wiki.
It's fine, okay. So let's not discuss it now. Are there people who can put in the time to take this up? And then they can figure out what works, what doesn't work, what people hate, what people like, and all that. Show of hands. Okay, Prema? Okay, so let's start there and then we'll keep signing more people. And by the end of the conference, I would like if everyone sitting in this room has signed up for at least one thing. So
thank you. Yeah, that would be nice.
I have one thing to add to what Shani just said. There are specific roles that we're looking to fill, but there are also activities or projects like this project alone, right? So the smaller projects that you can break it down into and look for people for those projects. Like I was
looking for the new volunteer onboarding. I think yes, we need.
Yeah, so I mean, if we want, we can definitely, at least to these attendees, we can either go through it now, or to these attendees, we can send out an email of all the projects that have come out as, whether as a result of this or something that we've already been thinking about that we would like to implement.
Not just as a follow-up, but as an ongoing process. Like
Right.
I think Peter just mentioned in the session that there is a discussion at Asha-26 that we didn't know about. And we don't get any email. Most volunteers don't know what is available. Right?
Quick question on this. What is the best way to reach you guys?
Right. Because I don't think it's email. I don't think it's the website.
Speak for Uttara. She sends a lot of these. We keep sending.
Yeah, we keep signing them. No one signs up. Like honestly.
They probably don't.
Hey, I sent you an email last month.
Can I? So I can speak from Vivas, and I'm just sitting here going, oh, we have the same issues, and we have quite the same suite of tools which are half-baked implemented of that. But what we've realized, somebody said WhatsApp, that's not a joke at all. And I think, and I'm clinically ADD, and I can tell you that others are not clinically, but still are. And so Facebook and WhatsApp have really helped engage volunteers. Every little win that we share, so we have a Facebook volunteer group, and so there's folks that don't even have attention span for Facebook, so now we have WhatsApp groups. We have WhatsApp groups for just the local chapter, then we have WhatsApp groups for all the leads from each chapter, so the key people, and then we have project-specific WhatsApp groups. So I'm personally part of like 20 WhatsApp groups, which is fine, but it just keeps it's quicker. The turnaround is quicker, and I mean email nobody reads. Nobody reads email. 50.
So on Wiki, on my page, if I have my action items, if I can check that page,
Yeah.
maybe then that would be really good.
That's already there, we can.
Yeah, I guess we just need a system that everyone buys into, right? We need to get buy-in from every chapter that, hey, email doesn't work anymore and we want to transition and we need you to get on the same page.
One thing I don't know how well it's working exactly, but one thing we're doing is we have bi-weekly calls and then we send a summary email to the active list about volunteer opportunities, events coming up, so it's all consolidated in one email, as opposed to sending the active list multiple emails. And so, again, still evaluating how well it works, but it's consolidated in one place, and they know it's expected on a bi-weekly basis. So.
But I guess that it is so. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say a lot of groups I'm a part of now start using Slack because similar to WhatsApp, instead of having like 20 different groups, you can have 20 different channels, and it's easy to have different discussions in different places, and then everyone.
So one thing I'd like to say is, being in the Bay Area, at least we always subjected to new technologies which come up. So there was a phase a few years ago where we said we'll start a Google Wave, which is like Slack for every project, and then they just tanked, right? And as a web team, we don't have the. I mean, you can definitely take up whatever you want at the chapter level, but trying to support multiple things Asha-wide becomes an issue, especially when things are just transitional. So.
And the same thing happens with the donation channels as well. When Google Checkout came out, people wanted Google Checkout on the website, then Amazon payments, then now Facebook payments. So we keep getting these requests all the time. So with technology, how fast can you add and then remove old things? And then with if you switch from say email to Facebook to WhatsApp to Slack, you maybe people who are currently involved in it might be in the know, but then once you move on to a new technology, you lose all the information from the previous one.
I have a question about this. I just wanted to add that instead of looking for different platforms, let's use platforms that people already use. If you use something like Slack, you will have to make people download Slack first and then get used to it. Instead of doing that, let's capitalize on platforms like Facebook and WhatsApp that people are already on, and then make Asha more visible to them on those platforms.
But I actually genuinely have a question. Do you think the work of Asha could get done on WhatsApp?
No, exactly. So you really. So that was going to be my very fundamental question. So because Asha-24, we had lots of such energy come out of it. So here's what happens. We have a couple of task items. We reach out to volunteers through whatever mechanism. There is some amount of activity initially. So what I want to understand is that when we come to you with an agenda item, say for example, we say, okay, we want to follow up on these kind of action items, say for CSR, let's say, and we come up with a list of action items. We have a conference call. Initially, there's a bunch of people who show up. What is it that takes you from there to sign up and then go down to, is it like life? Is this too much work for you, or is this, what is it? I want to understand.
Sorry, wait, I mean, people can answer.
Yeah.
I'll answer it as a part of my own experience with Asha-26 conference. I would say it's a multitude of mechanisms that is needed. One, I started emailing people, following up your email for 44 chapters, out of which 8 chapters are non-compliant, and then about 5 chapters are satellite. What I realized is people, there are half the chapters which might not even check email probably every week, I'm not sure. But there are chapters that will check email twice a day, and there are all kinds of chapters. But what I realized is out of 44, 20 are responding, and others are not responding. I was persistent in the sense I emailed, followed it up with, I asked help from Venki and Shankar, got the personal emails and also some phone numbers. I sent, along with the treasurer and chapter emails, I sent personal emails, and also I texted the people, and I called some people. So what I realized is there is a certain level of bonding and trust that is needed for people to show up. So the initial step is the bonding, because people don't know who Salada is or whoever it is. And for me personally, this bonding is happening because now I know people. Otherwise, I would just see some central team who is always opposing something, right? So Yeah, for San Francisco, we have a different opinion. Central team, like for us, is a different thing, but I'm talking from my personal experience of calling people, where I sensed this. That's when I started talking to people, and what I realized is it's just the perception. And for all I know how much hard work that goes in as a part of the team, because being a chapter coordinator, just for my chapter, I'm working hard. I know how much work that goes to the part of central team. But there should be a connection. Connection happens with multitude of platforms, not just one.
Yeah, so.
Not just online.
Not just online.
So, yeah, so that's, I kind of wanted, before that came up, I anyway wanted to transition to what can the central teams do better? Because we're clearly doing something wrong. The culture is that exactly what you said actually was my point, and it's really upsetting to hear, and I'm sure it is to a lot of people who work on the central team, because we all spend, right, 40 hours of our week doing this, and this is not really if this is the outcome, like, that doesn't make me feel good. So we're doing something wrong. And I actually want to open the next discussion talking about what are we doing wrong and how can we fix this? Because if I mean, I don't think anyone who hears this would want to do this for another day. I'm serious.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking as a new volunteer, relatively new, 6 months in, for me, until I came to this conference, it's really hard, like Salvador was saying, to make a personal connection with just the large amount of information overload that comes from Asha as a whole. And that goes along with a lot of other things that were said. You know, we have the orientation ideas, we have the buddy system, things like that. But before all this, it was kind of like step by step. I'll learn something new, and then I'll get more responsive because I'm like, okay, this is familiar, and I can follow these people up without questions, things like that. So I think it's just as simple as making personal connections. Whether it's with a new volunteer, maybe setting up a 5-minute phone call with, you know, if Akshay is the webmaster, and saying, hey, I'm a new volunteer at, you know, Boston MIT. Nice to meet you. I'll follow up on these items or something like that.
So, but I genuinely struggle with this, because in order for me to do that, so when I started this job, I actually set up a meeting with every chapter coordinator, and I spoke to everyone before I even stood up for this position. But I genuinely struggle. If NYC had NJ, she's Shravya is a new volunteer at NYC NJ. I'm an NYC NJ volunteer. I've never heard of her before today. So how are we expecting the central teams to call that person? Because in order to do that, the chapter coordinator needs to be engaged with the central teams.
Okay, I have a suggestion for that. So here's, I think, okay, it's more of a poll. If say from a project side, because as you are a new volunteer and I go through the cycle every time at Georgia Tech, we have students come in and I'm like answering the same questions, and pretty much it's rudimentary about what is Asha, what do we do, what is the project, the whole thing, right? So would you be interested, say, if I had a conference call, open Asha wide, and then whoever wants from any chapter, it goes to all our volunteers, right? And I just generally have a call and do an introductory call for 1 hour Q&A session, maybe once every 3 months. Would that be something that new volunteers would be interested in signing up, and is that something that would help?
But how do you get a new volunteer subscribed to that?
The
treasurer team has been doing this for years and years and years.
Yeah, so the Central Treasury actually we had this active onboarding program where whenever a new treasurer takes over at a chapter, we used to do a one-on-one phone call with the new incoming guy to make sure, guy or girl, and to ensure that they learn the ropes, they're aware of their responsibilities, and they're aware of the actual the consequences of their action or inaction. So we did this for many, many years, and I was involved in many of those one-on-one calls. I've done Skype, I've done phone, I've done Hangouts, whatever used to work. And I guess for critical roles, we should be doing that more actively. But for just a volunteer who just wants to step in and learn about Asha, we probably need a generic video, maybe a minute or two video that might help. And there are a bunch of videos available on YouTube that talk
Maybe
about
link them
what
to the
yeah.
Asha.org webpage, because that's the other challenge I find is where do people find these videos and maybe finding them easily.
So my name is Sumesh and I am an Asha Portland volunteer. And our chapter is fairly new. It's hardly a year old, and we were satisfied with Asha instance. So, and this is not an excuse. So I just want to apologize to the entire central team because I have been the culprit of like responding to the emails later than like I was supposed to. So I'm extremely sorry for that. So having said that, so the thing which really worked for all the Asha Portland volunteers is so the way Abhyudaya contacts us. I mean, even for a small thing, like he just called me on Sunday morning when I was sleeping. But he didn't call me actually. In his defense, he didn't call me. He just sent me an email which said. No, yeah, it said kind of urgent, and that's how his emails are. And I actually love that guy because he's to the point. He doesn't wait for anything. So I just woke up and I just gave him a call, and he said, "Okay, there is this work and art thing, and I think your project will really be like your project will be helped by this thing, and you should like really sign up for that." And I did it right away. So the point which I'm trying to make is instead, like, okay, you guys are already sending those emails, and I'm okay with that. But what I'm trying to say is like, just with that email, if you have just a broadcast text message to all the chapter volunteers that okay, there is this ARC cycle or there is this WAS thing, just one message, okay, like 2 lines and just please acknowledge or something like that, so that you don't like I don't have to read the entire email when I wake up in the morning, and I know that it is kind of urgent, and then I can like follow up on it.
I don't agree with that sentiment.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Why don't you read?
I'm not agreeing with many people. As a chapter court, for example, if I don't do the ARC properly, if Silicon Valley doesn't do it, it's my responsibility. So what they are saying, it has to go from top down, literally. Like, and the other thing which, look, we are talking about decentralization, right? That's what I actually like about it. But what you guys are talking from the center, it's opposite to our culture. We want to be a decentralized where a chapter decides, and the top, if the chapter doesn't do their job in long term or in a macro way, they tell them. Not daily, oh, you didn't do this thing. Come on, you are adults now, right?
I don't think anyone does daily. They only.
In a way, that's what's expected right now. That's what I got. What I'm trying to bring up is it's top down. A project steward is just has to handle that project. The chapter coordinator needs to make sure the project coord does the job, and maybe central team just needs to make sure that the chapter coord does its job. That's what I'm trying to bring up.
Again, it comes back to my list of action items that I have been postponing. If I can get that somewhere to look at, and if anyone can post action items for me there.
I can send you reminders.
No, I don't want reminders in email. I want my dashboard.
4 a.m. call, right?
Yeah.
So I guess to summarize, we want to kind of try to wrap this up because thing over and over again. But it seems like to summarize, emails are not working, so we need a different solution. But what we need from you guys is start taking us seriously. I'm serious. It shouldn't be acceptable to just archive it. Right now, email is the way. We will try, we hear you, we will try to find a solution, but until then, like we're committing to find a solution, we need some kind of reverse commitment that it will be a two-sided process, right? And we'll try to action all these action items, but we need people to sign up for things.
I just want to add, I agree with you. I think for the central team to get involved with each and every volunteer is not scalable. I think it has to go to chapter coordinators. Chapter coordinators need to be responsible. The chapter coordinator or whoever is active in that, they should talk to the new volunteer and educate them. Otherwise, it's not scalable. for you guys to be
So the solution is chapter coordinators to be engaged with the central team. Chapter coordinators should talk to central team and then talk to their individual teams in multiple ways, for now at least. But every chapter coordinator, whoever is here, this is the central team, and you have to be engaged.
Can I make a quick comment? So one general comment I had was, like the way we have been functioning, that definitely works to some degree. But at some point we need to look at, like, are we really using the distributed stuff that well? Where I'm trying to go is a lot of tasks we are trying to do at central level. A lot of tasks we are trying to do at central level, and for that we are going and trying to recruit volunteers from each chapter. We should be even thinking and considering, should we be recruiting chapters to take on those tasks rather than really figuring out, how to go all the way down. Is an example that Seattle signed up for previous conferences, other people have signed up for significant things. Let's look at how we can rotate across chapters and let the chapters be answerable and working with other chapters to make those things happen. It will lighten up what the central team has to do, and hopefully with the whole chapter signing up, the accountability and results will be different.
Right. So just for this conference, the current list of action items that are coming out of this conference is going to be an email that comes through.
100 text
I will send 20 different WhatsApps with each with an action item, whatever it takes. People just will sign up. I really think, I'm not trying to sound like a Debbie Downer, but I really think we are open to whatever suggestions everyone has. I think what we struggle with is that everyone has a different solution, right? And we're asking the central teams to find a solution that every person at every chapter is going to be happy with. Otherwise, people are not going to use it. So help us come to some kind of conclusion that you're all comfortable with. Whatever it is, we're happy to use it, but we need people to get on the same page, and we need buy-in. We need people to trust each other that if the majority votes for WhatsApp, then everyone, whether you personally voted for it or not, WhatsApp is the way for right now, and get with the program.
So I think that one action item we had talked about before was coming up with a more formal onboarding process.
Yep.
And I think that to me it feels like all of this stuff could be really communicated through like a more formal onboarding process. And if whatever we decide on as communication, if that's made really clear to new volunteers at the beginning, then it seems like that would make, and especially also, so like coming to this conference is the first time that I was able to kind of see the central board and get faces put to names. And I think having even like a video as part of the onboarding process of you guys introducing yourselves, that would have been really helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
Small things like that, whatever you did today or discussed today, why can't it be on an active YouTube channel, like small videos, 2-3 minute kind of videos, even for your onboard of new volunteers. You post these videos, and whoever is signing up for Asha, it's by ourselves, right? Like we are coming up. So we will watch them, and whatever is the rest of the knowledge that we want, we will take from the chapters or our projects that we want to attach with.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think we're trying to start a work stream to have a more formal onboarding program, trainings, kind of in a ADHD way that was mentioned, like short, quick pieces of information versus the wiki, which is long, lengthy documentation. If anyone would like to help with that, that would be great.
So we only have Vidhi saying that.
Last 3 minutes.
Yeah.
3 minutes, any question?
But is this still the open forum? It's over right now.
I have never had this problem that you guys are discussing. So just can somebody tell me what the problem is?
My favorite person over here. No, he's never had a problem with the central team.
How much time it's gonna take?
Is it like something that you want urgently and people don't respond to you, or the
Oh,
other way around?
I think it's both. I think, oh, yeah.
We just talked about it for the last half an hour. We'll bring it up.
Sorry. Sorry, he didn't understand the problem. His comment was serious.
Oh, yes. Why?
Let's talk about something else. This is not solving.
I just want to tell something actually. I've been with Asha for last 3.5 years, and coming to this conference already is helpful in many ways. But the most important help is like the thing against the code team. I already knew about all these names, Akshay Tole, your name and other names, but after coming here, like somebody already told that personal connection actually that happened. So people who didn't come here, I don't know what is the total strength of Asha volunteers in USA? Maybe 300, I don't know, or
No, I mean
200, 300 or whatever.
It depends.
1,500 according to our papers.
1,500.
Yeah.
So here only 180, 90 people are present right now. So I'm talking for people who could not come here or who didn't come here. So for me, even until this Friday, I didn't know all these people by their person appearance. So this connection never happened. So I think at least for this kind of connection, at least if there is some kind of, I don't know, maybe Skype or something, there is another new one, but at least visual thing so that everybody sees others, and at least the core team and maybe the coordinators from other chapters, so that
I think I did when I was taking on this position, I did speak to everyone, and I'm really open to doing it again. And I did it via phone, but I'm open to doing it via Skype, FaceTime, whatever. If that would really help, I'm open to 1,500 phone calls.
I just want to change direction a bit. Should we? So we heard from many project, Sandeep ji and many other project partners about what education is, what our mission should be, what are the issues that we should focus on, and things like that. Does it make sense to spend a few minutes talking about whether Asha's mission, as it is today, do we want to hear from volunteers whether we are still living up to what our mission is? Does it need change? Does it need redefinition? Does it need tweaking? Something on the project side that might be.
No, and on the mission side. So this was something which Payal talked about, right, in the breakout session. So we had both points of view that education is a topic which is too narrow, and we need to focus on everything, right? And there are also points of view which said education, as Asha is doing it, is too broad. We just going into all kinds of issues. We need to narrow our focus in case we need to make some meaningful impact. So, so that brings to what Shankar was talking about, right? Is our mission statement as we have it. So the mission statement as we have it is socio-economic change through education of underprivileged children, right? But then we support a whole bunch of projects in all kinds of issues, right? Our target was had been defined some time ago as universal primary education by 2047, right? If your target is only universal primary education by 2047, a whole bunch of other projects might be regarded as not primary, right? Whereas if we define it as socio-economic development, then all of them become relevant. So is there a need to kind of define our mission statement differently, our goals differently? Was the question. So if anyone has any thoughts?
I think that we can, it's too big to swallow, I think, especially now. I think that it's something that we can maybe, wait, I just think it might be a larger discussion that we can have, like, not over email or over something else, but I think that right now, I think UPE is a good focus point. We're all attached to our projects. To be honest, and we're all kind of biased, and we're all kind of like, we want to keep funding our projects no matter what they are at this point, right? We've grown into this. Going forward, I would hope that all of us would go back to our chapters and in our next project review meeting, we can, take away like what we've learned and the questions that have been raised, and ask ourselves, hey, like, maybe we can shift our focus a bit. But we should come back.
Can we create like a author deadline? So like, it will become UPE unless your chapter decides and comes up with a proposal and then we have a discussion on it. Something to force action or force controversy, so we actually get something moving forward with this. No?
I think that's fair, like all points taken, like this is a huge topic. But what really helped is let's not postpone it, like what I'm hearing here, like even though there are so many different voices, in fact that's what's helping me formalize this picture of what the problem is, even to understand. I think we should still discuss this, whatever ideas we have. Here, just discuss it. We're not expected to come up with a solution or a direction in this meeting in 1 hour or whatever. But I definitely like to hear what I'm learning a lot, to be honest. Let's not postpone this because trust me, it's never going to happen outside. I think we should continue. Whoever has voices are going to hear.
Right. Anyone else?
Yeah, but do you want to assign the action items before, or what do you want to do this?
If people want to talk about this, or this can be an action item, we need someone to take this on also and drive this conversation forward.
Yes, we will do that. I think we should start at least plant the seeds here. Then it will happen. If we simply say action item, I know what's going to happen. Right. It's going to be in the emails and whatnot, not going to happen. Let's start to plant the seeds here, then we can continue.
I think talking about the decentralized structure of Asha, there's nothing stopping individual chapters who believe in this mission to go back and start working towards it tomorrow. And also, one opinion is that it may not be necessary for everybody to agree that this is going to be their mission. And it might be useful for individual chapters to go back and just ask themselves, what is your mission? What kinds of projects do you want to run within education? But it doesn't have to be UP, but now you have an idea. It can be, and this might be guiding. I have one other comment on the previous one that I didn't get to, which is that I sometimes feel, I'm a relatively new volunteer, this is my second year, that we have extremely high expectations of ourselves and the amount of work that we can do. So we keep assigning ourselves action items, but they may be unrealistic in that we want to have all of this very good infrastructure, and we also want to steward many projects. And it might be useful to just have a consolidated sense of what is the average number of hours that it actually takes to steward a project well, respond to all the emails you're getting, fulfill all the responsibilities of a volunteer, and how many volunteers can realistically dedicate that much time. Just having that data might be useful.
Pradeksha. With that, I think now that I brought up, so I will take up one action item, which is class chapter engagement, and continue to foster whatever I could do. There are 44 chapters and only 19 are here, which means whoever is not here, the idea is to get them by next conference, at least most of them. So I'll take up that initiative, and I might need volunteers. I'll write to folks. Which ones? Forward the list.
Provided the list exists. So one of the things which again came up in many of the discussions I had was this new volunteer orientation. Not just new volunteer, but any new role orientation. Right. So we have started the process, and I can totally use help. So Benicia signed up. Right now the plan is to get like a 10-slide deck for let's say A, new volunteer, B, new project steward, then project coordinator, chapter coordinator, for the various roles, right? And all that's going to have is like a quick intro to the role, what the expectations are, and where to find more info, and who to bring in case they're not able to find info, right? So if anyone else is interested in helping out with this.
I just want to say many chapters have some kind of material. Like Boston has a lot of material. It's probably not as organized, but there may not be a need to recreate. You can just like recompile.
Right, I thought you were volunteering for that.
I can archive your emails.
Alright, so I'm more interested in who can sign up to help out and then try to get data from chapters. Alright, I'll bring Prasoon, I'll bring Shiva, I'll bring Boston. So Vikram, I don't have your email ID, and I'll bring Manish. And Anika? Alright. And Uttara is making more things for people to sign up on.
Sorry, Smita, are you raising your hand?
Okay. I would like to volunteer to drive the mission discussion if it's happening online, of course with the help of the central team, and also do the volunteer survey if people think that's going to help. Again, it's going to be anonymous. And the project partner survey to figure out how did they target funding. I just personally feel very strongly towards it, so I want to do it.
Okay.
Can I make a comment? Can you do the survey next year?
You're gonna take in 1 week.
So, just for the sake of history, so when Asha started, the tagline that we had kept was an action group for basic education. Because we wanted it not to be just a discussion group, we wanted it to be doing things on ground. But in Asha 10, 2001, in these 10 years, our understanding had evolved and we said that it is not just education. Because as I showed you the statement of Jyotiba Phule, education can lead to different things. It can actually lead to, increasing the gap, inequalities. So we said education for socio-economic change. So in 2001, this was changed. So this action group for basic education line was removed, and we said education for socio-economic change. And in my personal growth, the development from 2001 to today, which has taken place, and it is largely helped by the book of Amartya Sen and John Reyes, which has come out, in 2012 or 13, which says that India's GDP growth rate is very high, but our social indices have gone down. We can only be compared with some sub-Saharan African countries now, things like malnourishment and access to sanitation and things like that. So, in this period, the understanding which has developed, and I was very happy to see that Deepak has also reached the same understanding independently. It was not pre-planned, by the way. So, I did not know that he is now also supporting this idea. So, the idea of common school system, that is a government-run, government-funded, government-regulated common school system, is the only thing, as the history around the world shows, that can achieve universal primary education, which is required for reducing the inequalities in a country like India. Thank you.
Sorry, so just, we only have a few minutes, just two more tasks that I think have come up consistently. So one is this task management thing. I think everyone wants that. You're volunteering.
Prima,
yeah.
So volunteering for cultivating responsibility to respond.
Jyoti, right? And the other thing was, I think, consistent like PR materials that all chapters can use, branding, that kind of stuff. Anyone? So, yeah, sure.
I'll ask if any of the breakout sessions have any other action activities.
Yeah. And did any of the other breakout groups have any kind of pressing things that came up that we can sign up? I mean, I'll get the notes from everybody else.
I'll sign up for the for the standardization of the roles and creating the content or recompiling the content.
Okay. Everyone else respond, otherwise there'll be assigned the task that you don't like. But nobody's getting out of the room without the task.
I guess so. I mean, I think this is kind of a good group. We have 5 things that we have people signed up for. And I guess based on what we talked about, it's a top-down approach. I'm going to hold myself responsible to incessantly following up with these people to make sure we kind of start moving on these.
These are the people who are driving those things.
Exactly.
Anyone else wants to sign up
Exactly.
to be a team member, just come up and sign up.
So these are the people driving it. They are not doing it. So they're going to have to reach out to other people and form a team. But these are kind of the leaders of those sub-teams, and we need to mobilize that way, I think.
Yeah, I have the emails of all the people in the room, so if anybody needs, please write to me.
What's your email?
All volunteer.
I just wanted to go back to what Sandeep said about the evolution of education and the common school system that we should be working for now. Considering the project's load that we have now, this is a very broad question, but what do you think Asha should do? I mean, we're steering a ship for 25 years in a certain direction to kind of shift it 10, 15, or 80 degrees. What do you think we can do? Should it be a slow shift? Do you feel like we've done so far? Yes, to drop in the bucket, it's at least to drop. Where do you think we should go now?
Now you have to steer the government. So our energy and focus should be now on forcing the government of India to adopt common school. And the first step is to implement the Right to Education Act, which offers 25% seats in all schools to poor children. In fact, Asha's role has become easier now. You don't need to raise a lot of funds. You need to activate citizens in the country, maybe your relatives back home, and tell them that whichever child you see not in a school, go and fill out the form online in the district education office department and get him or her admitted to the nearest school to his or her house. Start with the children of the domestic help who works in your home.
Thanks, Sandeep. I know we are running late because of the interesting questions and session, and also because Dee did not arrive. But we have a new session which is at 3:45, which is Beyond Academics and Education, which is supposed to be through a video. And
I just want to take one last moment and thanks Sailaja for, she mentioned it, but I don't know if it was clear to everyone. She literally reached out to every chapter 5-6 times on their personal emails, on their phones, calling, texting, and after all that, she was able to get 20 out of 45 chapters here. So we are very excited.
We'll get there, 100%. Just like charity navigator. But thanks everyone. If you want to take a small break, you could. Yeah. Come back, please. In 5 minutes.
Can I tell in 5 minutes? You want to set up?
No, I saw you lift your hand up. I'm going to pick this one.
So, also because it might be here's the video of
As we go higher, and you know, having powers is very, very, very important. So if you have control over the memory of one million, you feel so powerful that you can play with the life of people. And there are higher chances of these people messing with that and using it correctly. In case of price, they will be good, they will be good, but they will not be doing it. But in other case, it's like live wire. I mean, for example, that is different than imagine what all they can say, what all they can That's why I'm against I'm very scared of giving so much this thing.
Excited people. What is people excited? Everyone, please come back.
Matt, can you hear us?
Matt, is it audible?
Matt, can you hear us?
I think he's on mute. Looks like he's on mute. Or you muted. Yeah, you muted. Matt, can you hear?
I was sitting on this chair.
Where do we put the question? Feedback. Where should we leave?
Come back. I'll ask
If you're leaving early, just leave.
Leaving early?
Yes, just leave it with me.
Right now,
Hello, yes. Sure. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, you can hear it. Yeah.
Great.
Give us 2 minutes. People are Give us 2 minutes. People are just coming back.
Hi everyone, please regroup. Thanks for coming back. Everyone who has done with feedback forms, someone will come to collect from you in case you're leaving. Leave it on the chair, will come back, or to your neighbor. Leave it with your neighbor. Come take it. I hope you're not leaving too soon. Okay. We'll start off the next session, which is beyond academics in education. Here is Mathieu online. Mathieu Fortier, can you hear us? You could.
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Thank you, sir, and thank you for staying online. I know we got late. Thanks for being patient with us. Intro of Mathieu. He's from Quebec City, Canada, one of the most favorite cities for summer only. And he made his first trip to India when he was 19 and fell in love with India, apparently, more than us. And he later returned, met his wife, Agade, I hope I pronounced correct, and also started, he studied Hindustani classical music, yoga, Hindi, and Bengali. And in 2001, moved to Dharwad, a center for Hindustani Sangeet, where with the help of sitar aficionado Ustad Hamid Khan, they founded Kalkeri Sangeet Vidyalaya. So, Kalkeri Sangeet Vidyalaya is a residential school where a teacher teaches students academic subjects as well as dance and music, along with drama. And today the organization supports about 250 youth from socially and economically underprivileged background. And with that, I'll leave it to Mathieu. Please go ahead. Thank you for being with us.
सबको नमस्कार। आज मुझे बड़ी खुशी है कि मौका मिलती है कि आपके सामने हम अपना संस्था पेश कर सकता हूँ। I hope you all had a fruitful conference for the last 2 days and that you will all get renewed energy from these interactions to work towards further realization of Asha's mission. I want to thank you for inviting me to your conference and for the partnership between Asha and Kalkari Sangeet Vidyalaya. Special thanks to Bhavana, Sadhana, and Akshay, which are being the links, I guess, between our two organizations. To me, it is a very natural partnership, very natural association, as we share the same values and objectives. So serving the development of India through bringing quality education to the country's most vulnerable youths. Also, warm congratulations for your 25 years of collective service. So about the current discussion, which is beyond academics and education. First, I would like to note that I'm not an education specialist. And since the last 15 years, I have, since 15 years, I have contributed founding Kalkari Sangeet Vidyalaya. My life has been mostly involved in fundraising, management, and mobilization. So the presentation will not be one from a scholar, but from somebody who has been in the action of service for the last 15 years. Why did we start Kalkari Sangeet Vidyalaya? Again, as was stated in the presentation, we started this school along with my wife, Agat, and Ustad Amid Khan, which was the principal of the Dharwad College of Music, where I studied, and he became a friend. So we started this school together. So for starting this institution was first our deep love for India, which we consider our country of adoption. Before starting the school in 1992, we had spent more than 6 to 7 years in the country, getting involved, of course, with music, but with various aspects of Indian culture. Our second reason for starting the institution was our passion for Hindustani classical music. And the third one was the urge to contribute to, in our own small way, to a better world, and share the social and economical advantages we had inherited. So let me start by basically introducing to you the school and you know how it functions and what is the experience of the kids inside the institution. Kalkari Sangeet Vidyalaya is a boarding school. It is about 20 kilometers from the city of Dharwad in West Karnataka. It is in the start of the Western Ghats. So we have a very nice and healthy environment. We're surrounded by the forest department. So there are beautiful forests next to the school. Also adjacent to the school. Buildings are very basic and simple. We didn't spend so much money in infrastructure as we spent in providing our kids with some vegetarian meals, healthcare inside the school and outside the school, and quality education in academics as well as in stage arts. Today we support 250 kids from first standard to 10 standard, these kids are following their curriculum directly in the school. Once they have completed their curriculum, of course, we still support them. So they can either stay in the school and make daily up and downs to the Harwad city, which is a city which has many colleges and universities. Return in their families and will pay whatever fees and costs they have towards forwarding their education. They have to, of course, every year submit their exams and bills and everything to the institution, and then if they are performing in, according to our, at least, passing their exams and everything, we keep the support. Kalkari Sangeet Vidyalaya is a proud school. So the medium of education is Karnataka's state language, Kannada, toward acquiring a good communication and in English, of course. By the way, why I say a proud Kannada school, I just want to make a little parenthesis, but I feel that we strongly feel that the preponderance of English medium school in India is somewhat cultural catastrophe. The various rich and beautiful languages of India are being in some way taken as second-class languages. I mean, there's as many people speaking Kannada than Italian, but I don't see Italians sending their kids to English medium school thinking that, oh, they will perform better on the international field. Oh, that's a little brackets I wanted to put because, yeah, to make the point that, yeah, we're very proud that our kids are learning in their the daily routine. So how does the everyday life goes in Kalkari Sangeet Vidyalaya? So kids wake up early morning. From 5th standard, they wake up a little earlier and have a morning music practice, which is a beautiful time. You can go around the school and kids are in small groups or individually, and the music has been practiced everywhere by the so it's a very beautiful moment. And then, of course, around 7 there is breakfast, and then the music teachers come in. 8 to 11, they are the music, which is of course Hindustani classical music, so a lot of vocals music, bansuri, violin, sitar, and tablas are the instrument and disciplines taught, and as well as Kathak dance and drama. So traditional and modern drama and mostly in Kannada language. For the younger kids from 1st to 3rd standard, it is a more flexible schedule. So they do 1.5 hours of vocal music every morning, and the other 1.5 hours is involved into what I would call educative games, right? So socializing and learning about different topics, watching documentaries. From 11, the academics classes start, 11, 10, 15 period. Then we all assemble in the main hall for lunch. And then around 2, the class will resume until 5 in the afternoon. 2 to 7, this is mostly free time. Kids take the time to bath and tidy their rooms and everything. And 3, and then of course kids can have time to do personal studies. And then again, they can gather for dinner, and then back to their own hostels and go for a good sleep for the next, and be fresh for the next day. So this is the monthly routine, the daily routine from Friday to Monday to Friday, and then on Saturday there is only a half day with only academic studies. Sunday is a day off. Other parts of our but apart from that, there are other activities that we have that serve our the process of education. A very important feature of the school are the monthly programs. So every last Sunday of the month, kids that we feel are ready for this prepare to give a performance on stage in front of all the school's community, the children, the teachers, the volunteers, and we also take the opportunity to invite guests on each of these occasions. So at some point the kids are being told, okay, we feel you're ready, prepare this piece for the next program, either solo performances or group performances. So it's a very big motivation for the kids to practice and do efforts. It is also a very confidence building and self-esteem building activities, as when the kids get the opportunity to perform, they have to definitely face a somewhat stressful situation or a demanding situation where they have to go in front of their peers and present whatever is the fruit of their work. And usually they get loudly applauded for their performance. And so it's a self-esteem and self-confidence building event. And on each of these occasions, also we invite a senior professional artist from the region, which comes and performs also in front of the audience. So it's a great input on the kids to have the opportunity to themselves hear and see accomplished artists and musicians on a monthly basis in the school. Another important activity of the school are the clubs. So, as I will discuss after, we get a lot of Indian and foreign volunteers coming in to stay in the school for quite long amount of times. And most of these volunteers are invited to prepare or animate clubs. So these clubs can be, depends on the interest of the students and of course on the competence of our volunteers. So these clubs take part in the evening after the classes. They are there 3 times a week. So the clubs can be chess, craft, science, martial arts, running, depending on whatever skills and competence the volunteers have. So this is a great time for the kids. It is in smaller group to have privilege timings with significant adults coming from other origins in India or from abroad, and for them to be learning new skills and activities. Another great point of the school, of course, is the presence of the ongoing presence of Indian and foreign volunteers. So we invite people to come and stay with us for periods of 5 months, minimum period of 5 months. So as the school is a year is divided into 5 months period, the volunteers will come just before the students come back from their holidays, and they will stay through the 5 months period. These volunteers will take different responsibilities in the school. Of course, we have a staff of 60, and the volunteers do not replace local staff, but they make additional contribution to whatever the local staff is bringing the kids. So the volunteers will do a lot of work as first wardens. So we have a whole set of Indian wardens, but they will get help from the foreign the volunteer wardens. They will contribute to taking English classes, and we get a lot of nurses, trained nurses that come either as volunteers or also for internships. So when we have in the school what we call the Bobo House, so this is a place that's open morning and evening where kids which have health issues can come and we get response for their different the issues they might face. If we can deal with the issues, of course, we deal it on the spot, and if we cannot, then they are being taken to health institutions in Dharwad. The volunteers also help for office work. So we have a longer term volunteers, for example, that take care of our sponsorship program. An important pillar of the financial pillar of the school is our sponsorship program. So we have the sponsors and the kids have certain contacts which are mediated by, of course, the volunteer involved with the sponsorship program. So some other volunteers come and have manual skills, you know, plumbing, electrics, carpentry, and they also help the local maintenance staff in their daily chores. So the volunteers the presence of volunteers on the campus has been a great asset for the kids' development. First, they get a very good motivation to learn English, as this is the way the only way for them to communicate with the foreign volunteers. So it ends up that, you know, by the end of their studies in the school, all our students have, though they all come mostly from rural India, they all end up with very good communication skills in English, but also they get a very good it's a very good opening to the world for them, you know, to meet people. Okay, most of our volunteers come from various places in India, of course, but also from France, Germany, the US, a lot from Canada. So having the opportunity to create relations with people from various parts of the world is a very an empowering experience for the kids, and it broadens their view of the world. So I guess that's what are the main features of the package that we can offer our students at Kalkiri Sangeet Vidyalaya. So again, coming to the question of the subject of the discussion today, which is education beyond academics. Many people through the years have been asking us, why arts? You know, I mean, kids have to get ready to perform and, you know, get jobs and, you know, singing. What will they gain from that? Why don't you stress more on computer education or science? You know, they should all become, of course, engineers and doctors. So how will music help them achieve this? You know. First of all, we feel that education is too often oriented towards the taming or domestication of individuals, preparing them to be parts of a system which needs that different person hold different functions to sustain itself. So it's like we are preparing the parts of the social machine, you know. And we understand that being trained to have a meaningful livelihood is, of course, very important. But we think that education should be in some ways more concerned with the general well-being and personal realization of the individuals. And we believe that discipline in an art form is a very powerful way for an individual to attain more deepness, more depth in his life and make it more meaningful. So by learning music, dance, and or drama, our students enrich their aesthetical experience of art, but also of life in general. As I said earlier, through stage performance, they build their self-esteem as well as self-confidence. They get to understand the links between sustained efforts and obtaining results. It's very clear in the music process. You need to work a lot, work on a very regular basis, and then you can produce beauty, which is an enthralling experience. They develop also a relationship to a meaningful and passionate adult, the art teacher. It's very important for us. We don't pressurize kids into performance. I mean, into in music. We really let them go at their own rhythm. Of course, if there are issues, we help them to find ways to progress, but they don't have to do exams at the end of the year. It's not competitive. So this relationship with the guru or the teacher is a very rewarding and nourishing experience for the students. By learning music, dance, or drama, they take part. They become part of the cultural and artistic heritage of their country, which is a very rewarding experience. There's been some very thorough studies that show that youths from socially marginalized communities that are having a sustained involvement in the practice of arts succeed better in their studies, study longer, and become more involved in their community as young, as adults and in their further lives. So this has been demonstrated, in very clear ways. And also, neurologists have observed in a very clear manner that the practice of music at a young age multiplies the connections between the brain's two hemispheres, and that the part of the brain involved in creativity developed. So, I mean, this is observed, it's a very, it's not an opinion, you can see that on the brains of persons that have practiced music at a young age, which unfortunately I'm not part of, but so this is why we are putting a stress on arts education with our students. I'm very happy to say that the kids that now KSV's first students are coming out of the process, and that they are that many of them are succeeding very, very well. Some are up and coming young artists, but others have taken other fields as science, business management, teaching, and they are doing all very well. It's a bit what I wanted to share with you about our school and the way we try to give our students better opportunities and the chance to be able to stand firm on their own feet in their future lives. To know our school better, I invite you, of course, to go and like our Facebook page, which is quite active, and you can really get a feel for what is the everyday experience of our students, our volunteers, and the team as a whole. And more than that, I warmly invite all of you on your next trip to India to come and visit the institution. And if you can spare the time, having people like you volunteering for like 5 months period is a very strong asset and can have a very big impact on our students' life. So thank you very much. I look forward to meet you have the opportunity to maybe meet you in person at some time. And I hope that the partnership between Asha and Calgary Sangit Vidyalaya will be a long and fruitful one.
Anyone have questions or volunteer, whatever you're listening up for it?
How many students?
By now, 250. 200 are actually now from 1st to 10th standard, and another 50 are there in PUC or a bachelor master's degree.
Question.
How do you select the students, please?
Yeah, that's a nice question. By now, of course, the students the school has got quite a good reputation in the surrounding villages. First, we take students that live around in a vicinity of about 30 kilometers from the school. So it's more easy for us to be in link with the families and for the parents to come and visit their kids on Sundays. We receive around 250 applications per year for admission. We have an internal committee which reviews the different applications. Of course, we're also in link with other organizations that help people in various difficult situations. For example, there's one organization in Darwad that deals with widows or abandoned women. So they often recommend to us kids of the women they are working with. There is another organization dealing with sex workers in Hubli, which is about 20 kilometers from Darwad. So they have been also introducing to us families, and we have been taking kids from the sex worker community. And I'm very proud to say that some of them are performing very, very well. So we get these admission. We have a committee select about 40 of the applicants. Then we have an interview. So we need, of course, we take only kids now from 1st standard. So we have interview with the children, but also with the families. Our main partners are the families, and of course, they should share our ambitions for their kids, for us to be able to make a difference. So we discuss why their parents want to have their kids admitted in Calgary Sangit Vidyalaya. And if we feel that the parents are partners for getting their kids a better future, then we are open to, of course, we consider the admission. And after these meetings, the committee will meet, and around 15 kids will be selected each year to join the 1st standard. Of course, there is no fees, and the processes is all very transparent. So these are the kids that have facing the bigger social and economical issues that are being introduced in the school.
Hi Matthew, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Yeah, so great work. I just have a question. So you mentioned that the volunteers can come for 5 months, but I would like to suggest that if someone is down in Bangalore for a day or two, they can do a slight demonstration or give a seminar in a good way or fun way to the kids of like talking about me. I'm doing some physics. I can choose some nice demonstration to give to the kids that might motivate them to do some science or in the future.
Of course, there has always been an openness and a flexibility, but at the same time, and of course, some person calls us and said, "Look, I have a very nice presentation. I could come and do that," and we're open to these kind of things. But at the same time, we are dealing with kids, and we don't want to have the school. Having too many people coming in and out at the same time. There is a certain also a scrutiny process, that we do with the people, that come. So interviews, and so it's very important in some way that it doesn't end up having just too many people coming from. So of course people can come from either 2-3 days or 5 months. But we've been having a doctor that want to come for 1 month and do a health check to all the kids. Hey, come on, we can do that. But a lot of our volunteers are either students, young youths that come after college education or after university, take a year break and come and travel and also volunteer. So of course, some people, more mature and more experienced people that can come and have a very precise set of skills and can come, might come for a smaller amount of time is acceptable to us. But we try to, maintain a kind of a discipline on that, because otherwise it becomes too busy in the school. Excuse me, just 1 second. Sorry. En bas à côté du système de son. Sorry. My battery is running out, so I got somebody to get the wire for me.
So I know you mentioned Bangalore, but this project is actually quite far from Bangalore.
Yep.
I think we don't have any more questions, but so Matthew, this is Akshay here, and I wanted to thank you for doing this at such a short notice. And so Calcutta Sangeet Vidyalaya is Asha Boston's newest project. We just took them on this year, and all of us at Boston are very impressed with the project. We already have one volunteer who's visited, another volunteer who's in Bhavna also visited. I'm not really sure. She was going to be in India recently. But yeah, I would love to visit it someday as well. So, Matthew, thank you again for your time.
Great pleasure, Akshay. Great pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Mathieu. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the next session, which is going to be a very short one with Aida. But please continue to be here. We have some discussions and also some other things. But before that, if anyone is leaving, please leave your feedback notes somewhere at the end. Yeah, before collecting. Yeah, please do fill up the feedback. Coming back to the short session by Kavita. Kavita is volunteering for the last 13 years across event management and project stewardship, and currently she runs Asha's Seattle Youth Program. And her talk is around Asha's youth program.
She's setting up the, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Hello, everyone. We have had 2 fantastic days. We have learned a lot, absorbed a lot, celebrated successes. We have addressed the challenges, which I'm sure
at Asha's size, they want to exist. And we all strive to get those kind of in control at some point. So let's take this on a lighter note. I am going to talk to you about the youth group that Asha Seattle has. This is our 9th year that we're starting out. And when I say youth group, these are really, we're not babysitting, we are taking 8, 9-year-olds. Like Paul mentioned this morning, 12 is the age when kids actually start understanding and learning. I'll just back over and they can get the stuff set up. No, that's really fine. It's going to be quick. And I've had a great time learning from these kids. We take kids from 12 to 18, and the reason I say 18, around that time they go off to college and they're mini adults and we can't control them anymore. Anyway, they're off wherever. This younger crowd is the new generation that we really need to groom to have organizations like Asha have new donors as we go on. We all know the number of people coming from India are going to go down. We have a huge set of kids here who don't have the kind of experience we did. We grew up in India, we saw certain challenges. These kids really don't see it. We take them back home, they see it. We do protect them a little bit when we go to India. We won't let them go in certain parts of the city. They have no clue how to control. Simple things. We couldn't let our son go to the playground because everything has to be fair. Fair doesn't exist on the playground in India. It's unfortunate, can't do much. In 2 days, you can teach them how to work there. But they are capable of giving a lot more to our community. We shape them, maybe not through Asha, maybe they grow up and do something locally, but we do want to shape them into becoming more than just career-oriented, hard-charging adults. No worries. So that was the basis of how Junior Asha came along. I am a volunteer for 13 years. My daughter was about 11, 12, she's sitting in the back now. I did some event management along with the team. I was a project steward, helped out Asha wherever. But as a steward or when I attended meetings, I would see these fantastic stories, which even touched my heart. These stories sometimes I had never seen growing up in India. There were pictures that I could see and I would show it to her. And she started saying, Mom, I want to do something for Asha. And all these people actually helped her come and present Asha at our events or do something. She helped me sort things out. But it wasn't enough. She didn't feel connected. And that's when the seed of Asha was stuck in my head. I'm like, okay, if she wants to give back, I have to give her an avenue to give back. There are a couple other Indian organizations here with youth groups. They either focus on leadership skills, which are important. They're trying to shape the child to be a leader, how to do interview skills, and that was not what she wanted. She was already part of that or gearing towards that. There are some that the regional organizations, but they help that particular Maharashtra Mandala or Tamil Sangam or whatever it may be. I don't know which other organizations have youth groups, but they were typically helping their organization to grow. So this was something that I couldn't come across. I asked around and I didn't get any leads for other Junior Asha chapters or something similar. So I was on the treadmill one day and a friend came along and I was just talking to her. She was more of an acquaintance at that time. And since we were acquaintances, we started discussing our lives, what we were doing. And I don't know how, but Asha came along and the seed of Junior Asha came along. And she jumped in and said, I'll join you. And that's how we started. We just gathered 10, 15 kids together. They were mostly our daughters and their friends, and we booked the library room and we sat down there not knowing what to do next with these kids. And it's not fun, believe me, when you have 15 kids, teenagers staring back at you. It's something. So then we said, okay, we should have a name for the organization. So someone came up with Choti Si Asha, which is great, but not everybody understands Hindi. So they decided on Junior Asha. Then they decided we should have to have a uniform. So we came up with t-shirts. They came up with a tagline. They used Choti and they used Asha to come up with the tagline, inspiring hope a little at a time. And everyone just fell in love with the tagline. So that's what the t-shirt says, inspiring hope a little at a time. They're purple t-shirts.